Up next on Valley News Live at 10, hear what steps have been taken by a family from the Valley fighting to keep insulin drugs available and prices lower.
Authorities think they know what drove a man to shoot up a Minnesota clinic.
Plus, protesters at the Bismarck Capitol talking to lawmakers, taking them to task for their bill on transgender athletes. Valley News Live at 10 starts right now.
This is Valley News Live at 10.
New at 10 tonight, the prices you're paying for your prescription drugs continue to climb. Healthcare Finance News is reporting that they've gone up 3 times faster than inflation in the last decade.
Tonight, a local family who called our whistleblower hotline is continuing their fight against runaway drug prices, and for a good reason. Valley News Team's Courtney Lockie shares their mission.
It was nearly 7 years ago the Johnson family received life-changing news.
A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of finger pokes, and a lot of tears.
Danelle Johnson's youngest daughter, Danica, found out she had type 1 diabetes. While most of us can count on our pancreas for insulin, Danica is one of an estimated 20,000 people in North Dakota alone that depend on medicine to live their lives. And that comes with a hefty price tag.
Her insulin for 90 days is $3,946.99. And that's only one of her 11 prescriptions.
The Johnsons' mission is to make insulin more accessible and affordable. In 2019, they went to Washington, D.C. to share their story and try to get help from U.S. Senators Kevin Cramer and John Hoeven.
They said over and over, even one death is too many. Even one death is too many. And I heard that, and I'm like, here we are 2 years later, and the same thing is happening. Yeah. We are losing people here in our communities, here in our state.
Back on the home front, a proposed state bill would cover the bare minimum: insulin, test strips, and needles for state employees. If it passes next week in the Senate, it will move to the House. The Johnsons are crossing their fingers.
It really is black and white for us when I look at my daughter. Obviously, if she were not able to access insulin, it would definitely be destructive.
14 states, including Minnesota, have passed price capping laws. 19 others are in the process. North Dakota isn't among them. The Johnsons won't stop fighting until at least North Dakota is on that list. In Horace, Courtney Lockie, Valley News Live.
And for more information, download our VNL News app and click on this story. As we mentioned, this story came to us through our whistleblower hotline. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call 701-237-6576. Leave your tip. We'll do the best to get to the bottom of it.
Traffic was held up late this afternoon along I-94 through Fargo when a driver lost control of her car in the eastbound lane and slammed into a concrete median barrier. 26-year-old Emily Kopp told authorities she was trying to make a lane change right before the crash. There was another car in the lane, and when she swerved back, she lost control of her Honda. Kopp was taken to Essentia by ambulance, was treated, and then released. 2 men are facing charges after that shooting incident outside a strip club in Devil's Lake last weekend. Marcio Colindres of Miami, Florida, has been charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, and reckless endangerment. Alex Sparra of Devil's Lake is listed as an accomplice in the case. The shooting happened at Wally's Roadhouse and Gentlemen's Club. Authorities say the 2 men left the club and say Sparra got a gun from a vehicle and handed it to Colindres, who then fired at the building. 1 man was shot in the leg.
An investigator says dependence on opioid medication was the driving force behind last week's shooting at a Minnesota health clinic that left 1 person dead and 4 injured. Wright County authorities say they found a plastic bag containing 6 oxycodone pills in Gregory Ulrich's hotel room. They also describe a video in which he mentions taking more than 30 pills at a time. Ulrich is charged with murder, attempted murder, and other counts in the February 9th shooting at the health clinic in Buffalo.
Know what you have done? You've stolen a vaccine from somebody that needs it more than you.
Authorities say 2 women who dressed up to make themselves appear as older adults to get coronavirus vaccinations were turned away and issued trespass warnings in Orlando, Florida. The women disguised themselves with bonnets, gloves, and glasses, even altered their birth years on their registration paperwork to bypass the state system. It appears the women did receive the first shot, but authorities don't know where they got it. The women are 34 and 44 years old.
You're not alone if you were called to reschedule your COVID-19 vaccine appointment this week. Delays in Moderna's production along the severe winter weather in the South earlier this week brought about shipment issues across the country. Due to delays in the manufacturing process, the state is set to receive the same amount as last week. The doses missed due to the weather delays will be recovered and will arrive next week. If you or someone you know in Cass County is 65 and older and wants to get the vaccine, let them know that they should contact Fargo's Cass Public Health. If you are in the Phase 1B category, you should submit the resident contact form or call the number on your screen. That's 701-241-1360 to share that information with FCPH. You should monitor your email regarding availability, and also do not share any registration links for vaccine clinics. For more information, log on to our website at valleynewslive.com. And for more on the latest vaccine news, you can browse through our VNL Vaccine Tracker. Just open your phone camera, point it at the QR code on your screen, tap the link that pops up. You can also find the link on our homepage.
The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says schools can open no matter how much coronavirus is spreading in the community. Previous CDC guidance stated that schools can reopen if they are mitigating the risk of COVID-19 with masks, 6 feet of social distance, frequent cleanings, testing, and contact tracing. Enrollment among Minnesota public schools dropped by about 17,000 students, or 2%, as families turned to homeschool, private school, and delaying entry into kindergarten during the pandemic. The state uses a per-pupil formula to allocate school funding, and the aid will drop by about $10,000 per lost student unless the legislature makes up the difference.
In your legislative watch tonight, a new Minnesota law is aiming to crack down on those thieves, making it illegal to sell or possess used catalytic converters, unless you're a licensed scrap dealer with proof that you own the parts. It's a move both victims and police say they can get behind, adding that they hope North Dakota follows suit soon.
If people are stealing these but unable to sell them, there's really no reason for them to invest their time into committing a crime to steal a useless piece of equipment.
I think they need to be talking about it right now, regardless of what Minnesota does.
Moorhead has had more than 60 catalytic converter thefts in 40 different locations since November. So far, no arrests.
A proposal for term limits on lawmakers made its way to a North Dakota House committee today. The term limits in question would impact North Dakota's 2 senators and the state's lone representative. The resolution would call for a convention during which 2/3 of the states would need to agree to alter the U.S. Constitution in order to impose the limits. The bill sponsor says he doesn't support term limits at the local and state levels, but does at the federal level. A tie vote in the North Dakota Senate shows that lawmakers are indecisive about changing the duration of the legislative session. Lawmakers gather every 2 years for 80 days. This bill is looking to break up those 80 days and potentially have lawmakers meet annually. Supporters of the bill say this change would make it easier to serve in their positions since they wouldn't have to take 3 months off of work at one time. The bill doesn't dictate how many days are in each year's session, so legislative management would help decide how the days would be split up.
A bill removing certain items from the dangerous weapons list failed in the State House. Items that would have been removed include swords, machetes, and other blades longer than 5 inches. It would have allowed anyone to bring them on public lands, including schools. Some high school students skipped class today and went to the North Dakota Capitol to protest a controversial bill that impacts their teams and teammates. The State House passed a bill last week to only allow students to play on teams that match the gender of their original birth certificate. These students argue that the bill is transphobic and not what they want. Supporters of the bill argue it's meant to support girls' opportunities, preventing males from trying to take a biological advantage in their sport. The bill must still be considered in the Senate.
The transgender community is praising President Biden's recent executive order allowing transgender individuals to join and openly serve in the military.
Experts estimate that there are thousands of service members who identify as transgender and many others who want to serve. Washington News Bureau reporter Julian Angeline has our story.
Do my civic duty. It would mean more than anything to me. I've always wanted to do special forces.
23-year-old Kason Bradley identifies as transgender. Born female, he transitioned to male in 2017. It's been his lifelong goal to join the military, and he's praising President Biden for his swift action.
I'm more than excited to go to boot camp.
Transgender advocates believe Biden's policy will look similar to President Obama's proposed policy. If so, new recruits like Bradley would need to meet certain requirements, like being diagnosed with gender dysphoria or distress in gender assigned at birth, and being stable in the preferred gender for 18 months. Bree Fram with the Transgender Military Advocacy Organization says active transgender military service members are rejoicing because the new policy would allow them to officially transition while serving.
This is the lifting of a burden for anyone that has to serve and has to hide a part of themselves. You're dedicating a portion of your mental energy to protecting your identity.
The Heritage Foundation's Thomas Spohr is critical of Biden's order, saying a diagnosis of gender dysphoria should be like other medical conditions, barring people from serving. The latest 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey says the rate of suicide thoughts and attempts are significantly higher among transgender adults. He argues that could impact their psychological readiness for the battlefield.
I think it's immoral to put people in harm's way who might be more susceptible to mental injury. You just don't do that.
While Spohr says he'd prefer the Trump-era restrictions return, he suggests officials should analyze the policy's impact once it's in place. In Washington, Jillian Angeline, Valley News Live.
The Secretaries of Homeland Security and Defense are required to report their progress on implementing the order by the end of March.
This has been a very busy night in college basketball. Later in sports, Devin Fry is in later to bring us all the action.
Up next, Hutch has some pretty good news regarding your weekend weather. Well, you'll want to stick around for that.